Greetings, Voyagers. Today's topic, cannabis cultivation. Up here in northern Maine, I have the chicken wire over the tub just in case some birds might want to feast on some tender young shoots. So these four are cannabis. These other ones are Shasta daisies. I'm going to put those in the yard. This particular strain is called Grape Ape. It's a 100% indica, which is what we need. We need the indica more than we need the sativa for medicinal purposes. I bought a packet of 5 seeds from a domestic grower out in California, and I dropped one of the seeds on the floor in the van, and I got down on my hands and knees with a flashlight, and I could not find it. So it was gone. So that brought me down to 4 seeds, and out of the 4 Grape Ape seeds that I planted, only one of them sprouted, and that's her right there. And I'm saying her because these are feminized seeds, guaranteed to produce female plants. We don't want the males because they don't produce very much in the way of THC or CBD. We want the females because they flower. So, yeah, I put those, the way this is done is you soak the seeds. Damn mosquitoes. I'm going to have to go put my hat on with the, mosquito netting. Hold on. Okay, so you take the seeds and you soak them in water overnight. But before you do that, this is what I do. Some people have their own techniques, but I take the seed, one seed at a time, and I take a fingernail file. It's really difficult because they're small seeds. You gotta hold them. And I take that fingernail file and I file down the thick spots on the seed case, which is right where it attaches to the stem. It'll be really thick right there. You want these seeds to, when they soak, you want them and sprout to bust open that shell so they can grow. And sometimes the shells are too hard and they won't crack open. So I file it down a little bit right at that really thick spot. And then there's also a little ridge, a seam that goes down one side of the seed where it's kind of thick. I give that a little filing down, and then I just scuff up the edges of the seed. You basically want to just thin out the shell a little bit in a couple of places so the water will soak in quicker. And then they bust open that seed casing, and then they grow. Now this little honey over here, this one right here, sprouted yesterday, the 4th of July. So she's my all-American beauty, my red, white, and blue, born on the 4th of July. And I'm gonna put a little, see if I can make a little red, white, and blue flag for her. And so that's how I do it. Some people take a piece of medium sandpaper and they roll it up in a tube, and then they put the seeds in there and they shake it, and that scuffs them up. Whatever. And then typically what a lot of people do is once they've soaked them overnight, they put a sheet of paper towel on a dish. They place the seeds on the paper towel. They lay another paper towel over it so that the seeds are sandwiched between two sheets of paper towels. And then they wet it, they cover it, leave it in a dark, warm spot until it sprouts. And you'll see a white root start to grow out from the seed casing. And they'll wait until that root gets to be about an inch long before they put it in the soil. I think that's a little dangerous. I don't do it that way because that little root, tender little root that's sticking out, that thing is delicate and you can snap it off real easy. So I just soak my seeds overnight and then I put them right in the dirt and soak it and let it stay soaked, let the soil stay soaked. But that grape ape took about 7 days to sprout. The other ones never did. I got, of the 4 seeds that I had left, that's the only one that sprouted. And it took about 7 days in the soil. I was just about ready to toss them out. And then that one came up. But that was the only one. And this is what happens sometimes with these seed buyers, seed banks, I mean. You buy seeds and they're dead. They've outlived their shelf life. They're not going to grow. That's happened to me many times. I grew medical marijuana in my home for 4.5 years back in Massachusetts, and I had to buy my seeds from overseas. Couldn't get them in America. And then what are you going to do when they send you dead seeds? You going to sue them? No, you just have to eat it, that's all. And I think probably over the 4.5 years that I was growing indoors, I probably lost maybe a couple $100 to dead seeds. And you lose the time it takes to order the seeds and wait for them to ship and all that stuff. So that's my grape ape. These other 3, these are called black-eyed Katie. It's 70% indica and 30% sativa, although I saw from another source it was 80-20, not 70-30. I'm kind of behind the curve. I mean, this is northern Maine, and this is the problem with growing outdoors. The way cannabis works is when the seeds sprout, if you were doing this indoors, you would be giving it 16 hours of light under your light and then 8 hours of dark. And that keeps it in a vegetative state, no flowering. And that's when the plant grows to whatever height it can or to whatever height you want it to grow to. And then in order to trigger it into flowering, you flip the light cycle to 12-12. 12 hours of light, 12 hours of dark. And that light cycle will trigger the plant into producing flowers. Now, when I was doing it, to me, 12 and 12 was kind of on the fence. It might take a little while for them to start flowering, so I used to go 11 and 13. I would flip it to 11 hours of light and 13 hours of dark, and then they would flower. And I would be sure they were going to flower soon. Now, I've never grown outdoors. I've grown in soil. Most of my plants in the house were hydroponic. I did grow some in soil, but we're outdoors up here in northern Maine. And these plants will die if the temperature gets below 50 degrees or they won't sprout if it's below 50 degrees. I had to wait, and it was a prolonged cold spring up here. I had to wait until the nighttime temperatures were above 50 degrees before I could safely plant my seeds. And that was after June 21st, which is the summer solstice. That's your 12-12. Daytime hours are equal to nighttime hours, and that's going to trigger these into flowering right away. These plants are not going to get a vegetative stage of growth where they can just grow and achieve the size that they need or that you want, and then, and then flower. These plants, because of the cold and the lateness of their starting, they're growing up in a flowering mode right now. I don't know how big they're going to get, because once they go into the flowering mode, they stop growing vegetatively. They don't get any bigger. They stop, and they focus all their energy on producing flowers. So I don't know what to expect. I don't know how big these plants are going to get. They might not get very big at all before they start to flower, which means a lower yield. Now, up here in Maine, there is recreational marijuana. There are no recreational dispensaries open yet. They passed that law 4 years ago, and they have yet to open a single recreational dispensary. I think that's a shame. And it's a waste. They're missing revenue by dragging their feet on this. But until there are recreational dispensaries, you are allowed to grow them at home. You can have, I think it's up to a dozen seedlings, but once they start to flower, you're only allowed to have 3. 3 plants. I have 4, and theoretically they're already in the flowering mode. They haven't produced a flower. They haven't produced much of anything yet. So we'll see. I mean, anything can happen. I could still lose these plants. I mean, they may get molested by animals. I'm going to have to build an enclosure right over here next to the van, because they are going to need all the sunlight they can get. And the sunniest spot on my property is right about here. Right about here. So when I'm going to have to build an enclosure, because I'm going to have to keep the animals away. Once these things start to flower, they're going to produce a lot of aroma, and it's going to attract the deer, and the deer are going to eat them. So I have to build an enclosure and put chicken wire on the outside to keep the deer off. And because it's right here and the road is right there, I'm going to have to put plastic sheeting on this side to hide it, so people driving by won't know I'm growing weed up here and rob me. Oh, look, I got little apples. Hey. All right. So, yeah, I have to build an enclosure to grow them in. And now it's cloudy and rainy, and it's been like this off and on for about a week, and the forecast doesn't show much improvement. They're not going to get a whole lot of sun. And, that's not helping either. They need all the sunlight they can get. And right now they're not getting a whole lot. So I'm looking at some disadvantages up here. And it'll be interesting as a cannabis cultivator to see how this turns out. I don't know what kind of a yield I'm going to get. Probably not much. But when we get back into an apartment for the winter, I'm going to set up a grow tent and I'm going to cultivate indoors. And that way I can guarantee success, as long as the seeds are viable. So that's the seed saga. But right now they're looking good. These, this sprout right here is already about a week old. Doesn't seem to be vigorous. This is 2 days old. That's 2 days old. That's my 4th of July beauty from yesterday. So these 3, the black-eyed Katy seeds, they're looking very vigorous, very healthy and strong. I'll keep you posted. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, tell your friends, and share, because sharing is caring. Peace and out.